The Court of Mockery. General Arya Soltris had walked through fire to reach the Aurelian throne world, but the palace guards acted as though she'd merely dragged dirt onto their perfectly polished floor. Their spears, long, crystalline shafts humming with telepathic energy, crossed behind her as she stepped into the Hall of Celestial Judgment, a chamber so vast it felt like a hollowed star. Thousands of Aurelian nobles sat on hovering platforms arranged in a great spiral around the central dais. Gold light shimmered from their armor and skin, each one radiating the serene superiority of a species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. And they were laughing at her. The sound rolled from all directions, telepathic giggles that buzzed like insects inside her skull. Arya kept her eyes ahead, refusing to give them even a flicker of reaction. Her uniform, once ceremonial white, was now torn across the thigh, scorched near the collar, and stained where a plasma shard had grazed her ribs. Every rip carried a story of the fight she had survived only hours earlier. To the Aurelians, it simply looked unfashionable. She presented herself to the Golden King in rags. A noblewoman whispered aloud, though her voice was projected telepathically to make sure everyone heard. Humans truly lack dignity. Arya clenched her jaw. She had not come for dignity. She had come for justice, if justice still existed in a galaxy ruled by tyrants. The Minister of Protocol swooped down on a floating platform, his robe woven from shimmering gold threads. His elongated face twisted with amusement as he inspected her uniform like a tailor judging a poorly sewn hem. "General of Earth," he announced, "it is customary to arrive before His Radiance in appropriate attire. Your state is an insult to this hall." A round of soft, melodic laughter rippled through the nobles. Arya's left eye twitched, not from shame, but from the dull ache of her injuries. She had patched herself with med gel during the flight here, but exhaustion pressed in like a silent predator. Behind her, two human marines followed, Delta and Reed, stoic, armored, and suspiciously quiet. They carried a large, tarp-covered shape between them. Aurelians assumed it was human luggage or ceremonial tribute. If they knew what it truly was, their delicate psyches might have shattered on the spot. Arya ignored the lingering stares and stepped onto the dais. The floor beneath her boots glowed with star patterns, reacting to her presence, almost recoiling from her humanity. At the end of the hall loomed the Golden King's throne, towering, radiant, fashioned from living crystal. The throne's occupant was conspicuously absent, though no one commented. None dared. "Humans struggle even with simple decency," another noble remarked. "Their clothing tears, and they simply keep wearing it." "They are mammals," someone replied dismissively. "What elegance can be expected?" Arya's marines stiffened, fists tightening, but she lifted one hand slightly, a silent command to hold. Their time would come. Everything in this hall was unfolding exactly as she had hoped. The Minister of Protocol leaned close, lowering his voice mockingly. "Tell me, Earth Warrior, did you crawl through a battlefield on your way here? Or do humans dress so poorly by choice?" Arya turned her head slowly, meeting his glowing eyes. "I was fighting," she said quietly, "to reach you." The minister smirked. "Oh, and did you succeed?" A tiny, cold smile touched her lips. "Yes." Before he could ask what she meant, the great doors of the throne hall swung open again. Not for the king's entrance, as the nobles assumed, but because Delta and Reed were dragging their burden forward. A murmur spread through the hall. Telepathic tendrils brushed the tarp, probing the shape beneath. Several nobles recoiled, confused. Arya stepped aside as her marines approached the center of the dais. "Present the object," she said. Reed hesitated. "General, are you sure?" "Do it." At her command, Delta gripped the tarp's edge and yanked it away with one smooth motion. Gasps erupted, some spoken, some telepathic, all equally horrified. The Aurelian Golden King lay motionless on the polished floor. The noble's laughter died, as though sliced apart. Golden blood dried along the engraved seams of his armor. His once luminous eyes were dimmed. Even lifeless, the king radiated an ancient power far beyond any mortal sovereign. The Minister of Protocol staggered backward, his platform wobbling. That is not possible," he stammered. The king cannot fall. He is eternal. He was," Arya said evenly, "until he attacked my colony, until he executed my people, until he met me." The hall dissolved into psychic chaos. Some nobles screamed telepathically, clutching their heads. Others shrank away as if the body itself were poisonous. A few activated their armed guards, weapons clicking to life, but their hands trembled. Not one dared fire. Arya stepped neatly to the throne and sat in it. Calm, steady, unshakable, her torn uniform stark against the golden radiance behind her. She crossed her legs and rested one boot casually against the king's armored chest. "It seems," she said, her voice echoing through the stunned chamber, "you were too busy laughing at my clothes to notice your ruler was already dead." Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. And then the crown, knocked loose during transport, slid across the floor and rang like a falling star. The sound marked the end of an era, and the beginning of humanity's reckoning. The corpse beneath the veil. For a long moment, no one in the throne hall moved. The nobles, once so confident in their mocking superiority, now stood frozen like statues of gold. Telepathic pulses flickered between them, panic discordant, uncontrolled. Their minds, normally synchronized in elegant psychic harmony, were fracturing under the pressure of disbelief. Arya watched it all unfold from the throne, sitting with the relaxed poise of someone who had already won. "Impossible," whispered a nobleman, clutching his head. "Our king cannot die. His mind spans 1,000 worlds." And yet, Arya replied calmly, "Here we are." Delta and Reed stood flanking the corpse, eyes scanning the hall for threats. Their fingers hovered near their rifles, though Arya doubted the Aurelians would attack. Not now. Not with their so-called immortal monarch lying dead at a human's feet. The Minister of Protocol regained his voice, barely. His platform drifted shakily toward Arya, and when he spoke, it was not with mockery, but desperate denial. "This is a fabrication," he insisted. "A hologram, a trick. Your kind is known for deception. The king lives. He must." Arya rose from the throne, her boots clicking on crystal. She approached the corpse with deliberate steps and knelt beside it. With a swift motion, she pressed her thumb to the armor's chest plate. The golden metal rippled, unlocking the biometric seal only someone who had defeated the king in combat could trigger. The armor opened. The king's body, still, heavy, unmistakably real, lay within. His golden skin dulled to a lifeless bronze, the psychic glow that once radiated from his veins permanently extinguished. Gasps erupted across the hall. The minister's knees buckled. Others cried out in mental anguish. "No illusion," Arya said softly. "No trick. I faced him. I fought him. I killed him." Her voice dropped cold. "And I brought him back so every one of you would see." The nobles recoiled as if her words were physical blows. Flashback, the king's sanctum. Arya's mind drifted, unbidden, to the memory of the battle she'd survived only hours earlier. The Golden King had been waiting for her within his sanctum, a chamber carved from living starlight. He stood tall, armored in plates forged before humanity had discovered fire. His voice echoed both aloud and in her mind. "Earth defies destiny. Your species crawls where titans stride." Arya had ignored the taunt. She had been running hot with fury, with grief. The king's fleet had wiped out Haven. 4, a human colony known for its children's gardens and peaceful research academies. Arya had arrived too late to stop the slaughter, but she had not been too late for vengeance. The fight had been brutal, intimate. Telekinetic force slammed her across the room, tearing her uniform. She'd rolled beneath a psychic blade that carved glowing scars into the floor. She had fought with fists, knives, broken armor shards, whatever she could grab in the chaos. Humans, the king had once proclaimed, were predictable creatures. But Arya had not been predictable that day. She'd let instinct take over, raw, chaotic human instinct no telepath could forecast. Her mind, unshielded and untamed, was a storm he couldn't fully read. And in that gap of unreadable human wildness, she had found her opening. A shard of shattered crystal. A final desperate thrust. A scream, not from her, but from the king, as golden blood poured down his chest. When it was over, she stood panting, bleeding, victorious. She had carried his body out of the sanctum herself. Back in the throne hall, Arya blinked the memory away as nobles whispered in panic. "This changes nothing," declared a hulking Aurelian guard captain, though his voice trembled. "The human killed him through treachery." "No treachery," Arya replied, standing. "He faced me willingly. He believed humans were beneath him. He died learning otherwise." Her Marines exchanged grim smiles. Telepathic panic continued to ripple through the hall. Without the king anchoring their psychic network, the Aurelians struggled to maintain coherence. Voices overlapped, contradicting, fracturing. "We must summon the High Council. She should be executed. The king's mind. I cannot hear him. I cannot." Arya stepped forward, her presence cutting through the chaos. "You've mistaken silence for safety," she said. "You thought humanity would kneel. Instead, we stood." A noble spat. "You dare lecture us?" Arya's gaze hardened. "I brought you proof. Your empire murdered millions and expected no consequence." Her voice resonated through the hall. "This is your consequence." Reed nudged the corpse with the toe of his boot. "Looks pretty consequential to me." A few nobles fainted. Arya lifted a hand. "Enough. You will stabilize yourselves. You will gather your council. And you will hear my terms." Delta raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, are they even listening?" "Oh," Arya said with icy confidence. "They're listening now." The throne hall pulsed with psychic shock, the Empire's collective mind trembling under the weight of a truth they had never imagined. A human had killed their immortal king. Arya didn't wait for their acceptance. She walked back to the throne and sat again, the tattered edges of her uniform brushing the luminous crystal. She crossed her arms, gaze unwavering. "Bring the council," she ordered. "I'll give you 1 hour." Silence stretched. Then, slowly, fearfully, the nobles obeyed. For the first time in thousands of years, the Golden Empire moved not at the command of their king, but at the command of human. The empire breaks, humanity rises. The hour Arya demanded passed in a swirl of panic that no Aurelian tried to hide. What had once been a meticulously ordered society, telepathically synchronized, emotionally muted, spiritually anchored by their king, now trembled like a structure with its core ripped out. Arya watched from the throne as nobles scrambled across the floating platforms, broadcasting desperate messages to their fleets, colonies, and ministries. None of them had dared approach the king's corpse again. Even in death, he seemed to radiate a quiet accusation. Reed observed the chaos with undisguised satisfaction. "Empire looks a little rattled." "Collapsed is the word," Delta muttered. "Their psychic net is glitching like a busted comm panel." Arya nodded. "Good. The more unbalanced they are, the less likely they'll strike before humanity moves." Before either Marine could respond, a procession of gold-robed figures glided into the hall. The High Council, 7 elders whose minds had once echoed the king's commands, approached slowly, each step hesitant, as if the floor might swallow them whole. Their mental signatures, once majestic, now flickered with uncertainty. The head elder lifted her chin. "General Arya, Soltress of Earth, you have shaken the galaxy." Arya rested both hands on the throne's arms. "Not shaken, corrected." The elder's eyes tightened. "Our king was more than a ruler. He was a psychic anchor. Without him, our empire's stability falters." "That," Arya said sharply, "is not my problem." A ripple of discomfort passed through the council. "You summoned us," another elder said. "State your demands." Arya stood. The hall stilled. "Cease all attacks on human colonies." Immediately, murmurs, mental and vocal, erupted behind the elders. "Impossible. Humans are rebels. Our fleets must maintain discipline." Arya cut them off with a raised hand. Second, release all humans held in forced servitude across Imperial space. A noble shouted. They were criminals. Arya shot him a cold look. Their crime was being human. The noble fell silent. Third, Arya continued. You will open negotiations with Earth for a new interstellar charter, and you will adhere to it. No more unilateral edicts. No more threats of extermination. No more throne-centric tyranny. The elders stared at her, aghast. You presume, whispered the head elder, that the Empire will submit simply because our king has fallen. Arya walked toward them, steps slow, deliberate. I don't want you to submit. They stiffened, confused. I want you to survive. Her voice echoed through their shared minds. A human thought, sharp, unfiltered, pierced their psychic haze. You face collapse, Arya said plainly. Your networks are destabilizing. Your fleets are leaderless. Neighboring species you've oppressed for centuries will sense your weakness and strike. If you don't cooperate now, you won't have an empire left to govern. The council exchanged frantic mental glances, their thoughts crackling like static. They knew she spoke truth. And, Arya added, the human fleet is already en route. She wasn't bluffing. Far beyond the throne world, the Vanguard fleet surged into warp, hulls blazing with golden acceleration flares. Humanity had prepared for this moment. Not conquest, but liberation. They had listened when Arya transmitted the encrypted signal during her infiltration. The call had been simple. For every colony they burned, we rise. The fleet had risen indeed. A counselor swallowed. What does your fleet intend? Precision liberation, Arya replied. Zero unnecessary destruction. Minimum casualties. We free human worlds. We stabilize unrest. And we leave your infrastructure intact. The hall grew strangely quiet. Why? An elder asked softly. Why not destroy us, after all we've done? Arya glanced at the king's corpse. Because humanity isn't like you. The blunt honesty struck them harder than any weapon. The uprising across the stars. While the council hesitated, the galaxy began to shift. On the mining world of Zulkar, human laborers broke the psionic shackles that once bound them. They marched from the pits, singing in unison as Aurelian overseers dropped their whips and fled. On the research moon Lyra 6, enslaved scientists sabotaged the psychic amplifier array that once broadcast Imperial propaganda, replacing it with a simple message. The king is dead. Humanity stands free. Across dozens of systems, vassal species, long oppressed, lifted their heads for the first time in generations. If humans could kill the Golden King, then the Empire was not a god but a regime, and regimes could fall. Return to the throne hall. Arya watched the council absorb the flood of breaking news. Telepathic transmissions flashed across their faces like lightning. Uprisings, defections, fleet mutinies. One elder trembled. We cannot contain this. No, Arya agreed. You can't. So what do you propose? The head elder whispered. Arya stepped forward until she stood mere inches from them. Her torn uniform fluttered with each breath, silent proof of everything she'd endured to get here. You help humanity stabilize the chaos. You negotiate in good faith. You let the throne die with your king. Or, her eyes hardened, the galaxy will bury your empire. The head elder looked around the hall, at the nobles trembling, the guards uncertain, the networks collapsing, and finally lowered her head. What are your terms for peace? Arya exhaled slowly. I'll draft them. Her marines exchanged victorious grins. The first Aurelian Empire in millennia had met its reckoning. Not in fire, not in annihilation, but at the command of a human who refused to kneel. Ending scene. The council dispersed to initiate emergency ceasefire orders. Guards hurried to redirect fleets. The nobles finally understood the truth. The king's death was not merely a loss. It was a turning point. Arya returned to the throne, not to claim it, but to rest beside it. She gazed at the vast hall, feeling the weight of a collapsing empire and the rise of something new. Humanity rises, she murmured. And this time, the entire galaxy would see it. A throne of ashes, a future of fire. The Aurelian throne hall, once the beating heart of a star-spanning empire, had transformed into a war room humming with frantic energy. Crystal platforms flickered erratically overhead as nobles transmitted ceasefire orders, countermanding centuries of doctrine in minutes. Imperial guards, trained from hatching to obey the king and the king alone, now stood in uncertain formations, awaiting instructions they hadn't received since the empire's founding. Arya remained beside the throne, no longer sitting but standing tall, every inch the general she was born to be. Her torn uniform and battle-worn posture didn't lessen her authority, they magnified it. In a galaxy used to hollow pomp and inherited power, the sight of someone who'd earned her place carried more weight than the brightest golden armor. Delta approached her with a datapad. "General, Vanguard Fleet reports arrival at outer orbit. They're holding position per your orders." "Good," Arya said. "Tell Admiral Rhea to keep the cannons cold. No orbital displays. No intimidation. We don't start wars we don't need." Delta nodded and relayed the message. Reed stood guard over the king's body, his expression unreadable. "It's strange," he murmured, "how quiet the Empire feels now." Arya exhaled slowly. "That quiet can become peace or collapse. Depends on what we do next." As the last of the council returned, their robes shimmering with dim telepathic resonance, Arya stepped forward. Her presence commanded the hall more effectively than the throne ever had. "We have reached the final matter," she announced. "The future of your throne." The head elder bowed slightly. "Respect now, not arrogance. We await your proposal." Arya scanned the faces before her, nobles trembling with fear, guards clenching their weapons with uncertainty. The elders, once untouchable, now visibly fragile. She didn't feel triumph. She felt responsibility. "The throne dies," Arya said. Gasps erupted across the hall. Several nobles clutched their chests. One collapsed in his psychic convulsions. Even the elders flinched. "You cannot," a noble woman began. Arya cut her off. "I killed your king. I destroyed your anchor. Your empire is already unraveling. If you cling to the old structure, you'll plunge into civil war and drag half the galaxy with you." Her voice echoed through their shared consciousness. "You need something new." The head elder steadied herself. "And you suggest?" "A republic," Arya said. "A restructured government built on shared authority. No throne, no divine monarch. Just elected representatives from every world under your control." "You mean to reshape our civilization?" the elder whispered. Arya's gaze was steady. "I mean to save it. For humanity. For the species you've oppressed. And for yourselves." Silence stretched, long, brittle, trembling. Then an old counselor spoke, his voice cracking. "If we do not change, there may be nothing left to rule." The reality settled over them like a cold fog. "Very well," the head elder said. "The throne will be dissolved. Authority redistributed. A provisional republic established under council oversight." Arya nodded once. "Good. I'll have Earth's diplomats work with your legal architects. The faster we move, the fewer worlds fall to chaos." A nobleman stepped forward, his voice shaking. "General, what a body. The king cannot remain here." Arya turned to the corpse. For a moment, just a heartbeat, she saw not a tyrant, but a relic of a fading age. A creature forged by tradition and telepathic supremacy. An emperor who had shaped the galaxy, only to be undone by the one species he had underestimated most. "He'll be sent to his sanctum," Arya said softly. "Let him rest where he ruled." Reed carefully covered the body once more. Delta signaled for the guards, who, after a painful pause, came forward to assist. They lifted their fallen monarch with trembling hands, treating him with solemn reverence. Arya didn't stop them. "Give him the burial your traditions demand," she said. "Humanity doesn't destroy its enemies after death." Delta smirked. "We're sentimental like that." Arya allowed herself the faintest smile. The galactic broadcast. Hours later, as the administrative overhaul began, Arya walked alone to a communications chamber. The room pulsed with crystalline conduits and glowing psychic filaments, technology she barely understood, yet could now command. She activated the interstellar broadcast node. The galaxy awaited. Her image projected to thousands of worlds. Soldiers, workers, enslaved humans, free species under Aurelian rule, and hostile states watching cautiously from the shadows. "I am General Arya, Sultress of Earth," she began. "The Golden King is dead. The empire that ruled you through fear will not rise again." Gasps echoed across worlds. A provisional republic is being formed. Humanity stands not as conquerors, but as partners. Our fleets are restoring order, not enforcing dominance. We offer peace, autonomy, and cooperation to every species willing to work toward a stable future. She paused. "Those who seek to exploit this moment will find humanity ready, but those who seek peace will find us willing." Her voice softened. "We rise together now. No throne, no chains, no fear." The transmission ended, and across the stars, from tiny frontier colonies to massive imperial capitals, a new message pulsed through the void. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had risen. The era of kings was over. Epilogue scene: A New Dawn. Back in the throne hall, as architects and diplomats set to work dismantling millennia of tyranny, Arya stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the vast golden city. The sun, massive, radiant, rose over spires that glittered like crystallized dawn. "Rejoin her. Feels like the start of something." Arya crossed her arms. "Or the end of something." Delta chuckled. "With all due respect, ma'am, humans don't end things. We rewrite them." Arya studied the sunrise. "Yes," she said quietly, "we do." The Golden Empire had fallen, but something stronger had emerged. A future forged by humanity. A future forged by choice, by courage, by fire. And the galaxy, finally, was watching.